Folks, David Watts here with another Luminar Neptune video. I like to show the way I approach these challenges. Don't claim to have it all figured out by any stretch. I figure I'm learning every time I try to do this. Maybe it helps you. Maybe you can see something I'm doing wrong. You can do it better. Love to see what you come up with. But I thought I'd at least share what I think works. Here's a difficult photo taken up in the Rocky Mountain National Park. And this right around sunrise time, if I remember correctly, this glow on the mountains, we call it alpenglow. The sun is just barely breaching the horizon, and it's a very soft pink light on these mountains. But a real difficult sort of exposure. Maybe a gradient filter would have worked well on the camera to address this, but it is what it is. That's what we have. This is a raw file of Fuji XM1 from a couple of years back, one of the older models. And maybe there's a way we can do something with this. So you be the judge. One of the things you see about this photo is it's just not in balance. Up here, everything's basically underexposed and just kind of gray. Down here in the water reflection, it's not bad, but it's certainly not balanced. I think this adjustable gradient might be useful for us. So let's try that out. First thing you do is set the orientation. And what we need to do is decide, where that boundary is going to be between the top and the bottom of the image. I'm going to start somewhere in this range. Make it fairly small sort of transition in this zone, because up here certainly this will be the upper part of the image. A lot of light on those mountains. Down here it's darker. We can, I think, fairly consider this will be a bit of a transition. So with that in mind, now we can set the exposure, the contrast, the vibrance, and the warmth for the top and the bottom separately. So let's see what happens. What if we back this exposure down? I think already we're making an improvement. What about contrast? Down doesn't seem to be the way to go. Let's add a little contrast, and I think that probably is better. Vibrance. It is quite vibrant already. Maybe we should scale that back just a little bit. It's not quite so vibrant, and warmth. We're kind of changing the color, if you will, the white balance. That was too much. Let's put back in some warmth and see if we can fine-tune that just a bit. I notice it takes a little bit of time on this particular slider to show the impact of our changes. Go just a bit more. There we go. Get a little warmth back into it. Let's bring that vibrance back up. Maybe we went too far there. Okay, let's assume, and your taste will vary and you'll do it a little bit differently. Just want to show more of the technique than anything. What we're working on is seeing if we can get this top and bottom kind of balanced. And so let's see what happens here if we start adjusting the bottom. Well, that I think is the wrong way. Let's bring the exposure up just a bit. And what we're just looking for is a way to kind of balance this out. So the images, the top and bottom, the reflection and the reality are at least somewhat balanced. I'm going to bring the vibrance down. Let's bring the warmth down just a little bit. Now all of a sudden, I think we've got an image that is somewhat balanced. Now we may have lost some of that pink glow. We can try to put that back in. And from here it's just an iterative process of trying to balance the top and bottom in a way that's fairly realistic and also desirable and interesting. It might be then that we reach a point where we say, okay, this is helpful. It's pretty good. You see, I can't help but tweak it a little bit more as I go. I'm noticing the grass is kind of dull. Maybe we bring some of that back up a bit. You'll have to decide. It's not a perfect process, but finding that balance. Now you may say, okay, so now we've got kind of a balanced image, but the whole image still needs some sort of global type adjustment. So here's where I think we would add another layer up here, a new adjustment layer. Let's put back in that accent AI filter and maybe the brightness and contrast. They're pretty simple filters. Let's just see what happens. So let's add a little boost to this. And I think we're sort of moving in the right direction. We're adding back in some good contrast to the whole image. It's relatively balanced. Maybe some brightness, maybe not. Actually, I like it a little better going down. Let's see about some overall contrast. I think maybe I'd add a little bit back to it. And if we go too far, I think that pink gets pretty strong on those mountains. But I think, let's step back. If we look at where we started and where we end, I think we've moved in the right direction. And that's what counts. You can probably find a way to do this better, make it a little more realistic, but I'd like to show some of these approaches, and again, you can take it further and do more with it. One other thing you might consider is the foliage enhancer. So with this, we might can bring some life back into the trees. It looks a little dull. Let's just see what happens here. Not seeing much results yet. There's a little bit coming along. And again, we just sort of incrementally bring this up. You might decide the green is just right, or you might decide it's a little too neon, and you can back that off and change that with the hue. Notice if we go way down on the hue, it'll shift the green one direction. If we go way up on the hue, it goes a different direction. So you can find sort of a sweet spot for your purposes. And again, before and after. Are we making an improvement? Yes. Will it win awards? Maybe not, but we're just interested in trying to bring some life and to pictures that have some challenges. And again, maybe you're sharing Facebook, social media, Instagram, and this won't be printed 5 feet by 7 feet or anything. You're just looking for a good representation of what it was like to be there. And I think this is a step in the right direction. So hope that might help a little bit. As a quick recap, what we did was we used this adjustable gradient tool. We set the orientation of it. And by the way, once we've used it now, we can shift that if we think we need to come up a little bit, or if we think we need to tighten it up even more, we can change that orientation. Then we adjusted the top and bottom to see if we couldn't balance that image just a bit. Then with imbalanced, we can maybe do some global kind of things and try to bring the whole image back to life. And I think we're in a pretty good spot. Hope that might help a bit. Always enjoy sharing these with you. Again, love for you to take this and make it better. That's how we all learn. Have a good day. Take care.